We are Nerd Rage. This is our critical Let's Play of Braid. I'm Ethan.
I'm Dale.
I'm Alex.
I'm Asha.
I'm Crystal. I'm Ingrid.
So Braid is an indie game that came out in 2008. It's designed by Jonathan Blow.
So this game's a 2D platformer. You can kind of see the controls are laid out here in the beginning to explain the mechanics. They're pretty simple. You've got spacebar for jump.
You got the arrow keys, same direction, right? You're moving right to left like a 2D platformer.
Basically, in this first level, he's just guiding you through the controls, gradually introducing you to the mechanics that you're going to use throughout the rest of the game.
But all you can do at this point is move left and right and jump. There's nothing different so far.
He's also introducing the puzzle pieces at this point, showing you that you need to collect them.
So just looking at the game, like, as much as it is a very interesting artifact for you to kind of get into, there is a lot of resemblance to the existing game culture, which is, for those of you who have played the game or any platformer for the most part, you can see a lot of resemblance to just Mario. You can get your spikes, your volcano pits of sort. I'm sure you guys can think of a better word for it. Your fences that you climb, and these are very much resemblance to Mario. Even the fact that it's a platformer and the only form of attack that you do is just jump on, what do you guys call these? Lion
Goombas,
things?
and they're
they're Goombas in Mario, but what did you?
Hedgehog creatures? I don't know.
It's obviously
They're
just a direct reference to that type of enemy.
Yeah, and they're shot out of a cannonball, and you see like plants coming out of pipes and ladders, which, well, I guess it's a Kirby reference. So even at the end of the level, you're seeing a flag, you're seeing a castle, you're seeing and you just look at the screen right now, you have a dinosaur coming out saying that the princess is in our castle. Clearly, if you played Mario, you know there's just so many geek you references that you can make right now, and the fact that the dinosaurs like Yoshi,
There's
what
a castle.
there's a castle,
Princess
and
is in a different one.
which is very much like Toad. I mean, here you'll see a little reference that we have right here. That is just flat out from Mario.
There's an interesting mechanic that we haven't mentioned yet, but it's one that's very unique to Braid, and it hasn't been explored in other games that much. It sort of changes around the platformer scheme a little bit, and it's that you can reverse any action you do in the game. So if you fall down on this flaming spikes or something, you don't die, you just press reverse to go back in time. So as the game goes on, it turns into something that you use to solve puzzles. And so in this level you can see that you jump down and kill the monster and grab the key, but then there's no way out of the pit except to reverse time. And then as you reverse, you're still holding the key because it's sparkling, and the sparkling things aren't affected by the time reversal. And so you get sucked back up onto the platform, and then you can solve the puzzle. And so this is
actually sucked up.
So you don't actually get sucked up. It's just a time reversal. So you go back in time, but you still have the key, and then you can jump over this pit and solve the puzzle of the door. And as the game goes on, he expands on this in more and more complex ways, making puzzles that require you to reverse for longer periods of time or reverse in certain sequences that will allow you to solve the puzzles. So this is a pretty interesting game mechanic because it's not one that you see often in games.
Yeah, it's not just a reverse time because you died mechanic. It's a required mechanic in the game to complete the puzzles that make for better gameplay.
In a lot of games, death is like punishment, right? You have to restart the game. Often you lose items or certain like equipment. And in this respect, it allows you to just pick up where you were going. Like literally, time is not of the essence. You can just go back. Not a big deal. You're not wasting a lot of time starting from the beginning.
Yeah, another thing that kind of fights against traditional platformers is that there's not even a stop clock that most platformers have that score you on points. You literally are just going through the level and collecting your puzzle pieces, and like you said, there is no time restriction on that.
But there is so much beyond that too, which we'll talk about it a little later. we will show you a clip by Jonathan Blow where he talks a lot about the interesting aspect that lies beyond this game. So we'll roll the clip right here.
So the way that I'm approaching design in this case really is kind of experiential, right? I'm thinking about when the player comes on the screen, what's going to be happening, right? You know, not quite in the same way that you think of it in a movie, but sort of, right? You have to put your mind in the viewpoint of the player and think about what's going to happen. And there's this excitement about ideas unfolding that I try to put into the game. You know, it's a stream of communication between the designer and the player. And the design of a level like this is it's sort of a dialogue, or at least a monologue, where it's like, hey, check this out, you know. Did you realize that you were going to have a problem coming up that ladder, right? Isn't it weird but cool that you can have so much of a problem just because this ladder is a little bit to the left? If it was over here or over here, you wouldn't have that problem, you know. And so that is the interesting part. That's the important part. It's not important that it's a tricky puzzle that takes some thinking to solve. I mean, that's a little bit cool, but you know, any puzzle game can give you puzzles that you have to think about and that are tricky to solve. But what any particular game can give you is details, is like interesting insights into particular situations. And I think that when a game realizes that and seizes that way of doing things and runs with it, it can do some really special things.
So through Jonathan Blow's interview, we can see that he has spent a lot of time talking about the mechanics of the game and the details in which he put into developing the game. So far we've talked a lot about the gameplay mechanics, which kind of goes towards the nerd stream culture, specifically when he references many of the Mario gameplays. But what we would like to do is focus more on the crit stream aspects of Braid.
And crit stream is, when we say we want to enter the crit stream, we mean we'd like to critically engage with this work, not just as viewing aspects of the game as intentional by the game designer for smooth gameplay, but rather as trying to have some sort of expressive goal, share some sort of thoughts or ideas.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of getting away from all the preconceived notions. Like, I was talking a lot about Mario references, and we're just trying to get away from that, because the game can be so much more than just a game, I guess.
Yeah, it's not just referential and made for gamers who know all these references to just pat themselves on the back. He's definitely trying to express something here, and we have some ideas about that.
So in terms of it being a critical game, this is really emphasized by Jonathan Blow more than anyone. After his game was released, a lot of people started making blog posts about it and stuff like that. And surprisingly, he actually got on the forums and started commenting and replying to people, and occasionally getting into a few arguments about the meaning of the game and stuff like that. Which is really interesting because it emphasizes that he put a lot of expressive intentions behind the design of this game, and he doesn't want it to be taken just for something that's, you know, has beautiful artwork or has an interesting mechanic of reversing time. There's more of a story, and there's more meaning behind that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good reason that we want to look at this game critically, is because of these reasons, that he believes there's more to this game than just the mechanics. Even
In a couple of
probably know. I mean, he made it, right? So.
but still, people can think, everybody has different takes on the game, and it's possible that you could find something that he didn't even notice when he was making the game. It might have been subconscious or not on purpose, and then it just came into the game, and people can find those things.
In interviews, he's discussed about people not really getting the game or not trying to engage with it in this way. So I think it's important that we have this kind of discussion when designers themselves are asking for them.
And this also is kind of cool because what this type of thing does is it establishes games as an important medium for communicating, much in the way that we might look at film or a book as something that has the potential to communicate. It sort of establishes games as something that have the capacity to say something as well.
So for this part, we're going to go back to the map world, or the World 1 as it's called. It's kind of a hub for all of the other worlds, World 2 through 5, and the thing about it is it's kind of like a meta puzzle, because we have puzzles within a puzzle as you are collecting the puzzle pieces by completing 2D platform puzzles, but then you go and you finish a classic like cardboard kind of puzzle.
Jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We don't even know what those are.
Yeah, we don't even have this anymore. And
Plus they're really expensive.
there's not only is there's not their original way to complete the puzzle by matching up the jigsaw cuts. If you look further into the game, there are stars that you can collect by creating different pieces of the puzzle that aren't supposed to line up, or at least aren't supposed to line up in the way that you would
Instinctively think of it.
instinctively think of it that way.
So there are hidden puzzles within the puzzle.
It's like a
as
meta
well as-
puzzle.
Yeah. But once you complete the puzzles, they do become beautiful paintings that can also tell a story when you look at them chronologically from world to world. As we have World 2 through 5, it sort of starts off as a couple, presumably young couple, transitioning over to a man at a dinner party, it seems, and then later to a child's bedroom, as signified by the kind of toys scattered around the room, and then later on to a man going on an airplane trip. He looks sort of sullen, so we might assume that although these art paintings are of different men, they can also tell the story of one man.
The hub space is also interesting in that you don't think of it as a platform in itself, but as we mentioned earlier, there's a hidden puzzle within one of the puzzles, which you can get one of the stars. So the stars are introduced to you with a constellation, and if you are a critical gamer, perhaps you'll think, what's that constellation about? And you can collect all 8 of the stars. And so one of the stars you can find in the puzzle by arranging the pieces in such a manner, and there's something tricky about that.
I mean,
I would really like to bring up that point, because if you do complete the puzzle as it is originally intended as a jigsaw puzzle, you're not allowed to undo that puzzle. I think that's really interesting that you can't undo a puzzle at again without reversing.
on my first playthrough, I realized there was that star because Asher talked about it. I had to replay the entire game up to that point, and that was like a good 30 minutes of my time.
Exactly, so
Yeah, and I think it's not just critical gamers who are going to notice that, but experienced ones, because if you see a constellation with a bunch of outlines, you're like, I'm probably going to be collecting something to fill in those outlines.
But the thing about that is it's very easily missed, as it's one of the very first things you're introduced to in the game, in a very flat or boring part of the game.
Yeah, I mean,
you
well-
can walk by it and not even notice it's important to the game.
To the point where the game is kind of distracting you because all it does is just like, here is how you walk. Here, press start to open up the menu. Like, they're not even pointing to you. Like, look at the stars. They might mean something.
So again, with the fact that you can't get that puzzle piece if you've already put the puzzle together, so going through the game on your first playthrough, you get into a pattern. You're like, I put the puzzle pieces together, I complete the puzzle, I move on to the next world. That requires you to play this game again and to look through it and to notice things that you may not have noticed before. So in trying to get these stars, you, again, like the time reversal mechanic, it's requiring you to retrace your steps. And maybe that's not something that games really ask of you. I guess having you die over and over and over tests your patience. But test your patience in like a literal way, this Braid definitely does that. To get one of the stars, you have to wait on a cloud that moves across the level screen, and it takes like 2 hours, an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Give or take, yeah. Which is crazy ironic because this
Crazy.
game's all about time.
Exactly.
Going with the original back to Nerd Stream really quick, going with a very prominent theme in current games right now, patience is never rewarded really, except for in very few instances, and this is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about platformers, all we're seeing now is speed runs, really.
Exactly.
Not a game that's telling you to just stop and think for 2 hours that maybe you have a secret star.
Yeah. So it's interesting when you think about this game as something positioned within a game culture. because it sort of has that interplay with other concepts that are being used, and in some ways it might challenge other sort of mainstream ideas that are expressed in games.
Values.
Yeah, something like that.
So coming back to the stars, once you collect all 8 stars in the constellation, you see that it is Andromeda, who in Greek mythology was captured and chained to be eaten or sacrificed to a monster.
Speaking of things that are kind of somewhat hidden in the game, in addition to the top layer of story of Tim trying to find the princess, there's another layer which seems to be about the creation of the atomic bomb. You really get to see a lot about this in the epilogue, where there's text that directly reference that, and there's a quote from directly taken from the director of the Manhattan Project. And of course, at the end, spoilers, if you collect all the 8 stars and you're actually able to catch the princess, she explodes like a bomb.
Yeah, it's interesting because people came up with this elaborate theory, and there's a lot of little details that could make this atomic bomb story fit in really well. For example, in one of the last stories or chapters of the game, you're being followed by a flaming wall. It's sort of like blowing up after you. You could make that connection. So there are small things like this that people have elaborately strung together to create a story. But when asked about it, Jonathan Blow claims that he has a very specific meaning behind the game, and that it doesn't really have anything to do with the atomic bomb. So this is kind of interesting because it brings up questions about intended meaning that the author specifically wrote this game with, and meaning that can be created as you interact with the game.
Honestly, I've read stuff from Jonathan Blow that says that he really left it all open to interpretation, and that, you know, there is a lot of subtext about the Manhattan Project and stuff, that he wasn't like nixing that as an interpretation.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're talking about this as being like a whole new media substance, much like literature and books and poetry, you see a lot of different meanings hidden within one specific context. And for video games, we're just barely scratching the surface of just this new thing where how you're playing it, how you're experiencing it changes so much, and the story that it tells may mean multiple things.
Yeah, for example, I've heard another interpretation that it's really just about obsession and what that can do to a person. Because as you see, Tim gets super focused on finding the princess, and in the end, that doesn't work out so well.
Yeah, she blows up. So
yeah.
Jonathan Blow has also stated that game making should be personal. This isn't like a direct quote, but he's conveyed that it's a very personal game for him. And so Tim is just a very generic character, perhaps, that anybody could put themselves into, and creating this elaborate plot about the atomic bomb is no less valid, perhaps, than the story about obsession. But either way, just thinking of it in terms of like a designer's very personal game, and each choice and each potential interpretation being something that they thought about, I think is very important. So thanks for watching and listening.
This has been an example of just a way to critically engage with something like a game. We kind of want to leave it open.
And we hope you engage too in the comments.
That'd be really cool.
yeah, I mean, we're not getting sponsors like any other Let's Play, but like and subscribe. I always wanted to say that. So we'll see you soon if we ever record again.